Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and these are all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the first trailer for Tales of the Empire. Now, this is a sequel series to Tales of the Jedi, which documented the fall of Dooku and the rise of Ahsoka Tano. Similarly, this anthology is going to focus on two background characters, Barriss Offee and Morgan Elsbeth.
Alright, buddy, who are they?
Well, I'm going to explain, and I'll say that I do think this series is going to be absolutely necessary viewing to understand what the hell's going on with Ahsoka Season 2 and that big culmination movie that Dave Filoni is making. But before we get rolling, I want to announce one of my all-time favorite shirts we have ever designed, the Good Soldiers Follow Orders. This recreates the ending of the Clone Wars with this haunting clone refrain. This is one of my favorite shirts we have ever designed, and you can find the link for it down below. Thanks for watching and supporting our channel. So the trailer opens with Grand Admiral Thrawn, voiced once again by Lars Mikkelsen, who also plays him in Ahsoka. He asks,
"Why do you seek Imperial favor?"
And here he is talking to Morgan Elsbeth. Remember, she appeared in Season 2 of The Mandalorian when Ahsoka pressured her for information.
Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
And she was, of course, one of the main antagonists in Ahsoka Season 1. She was the one who gathered all these Imperial resources to build a giant hyperspace ring to bring Thrawn home from another galaxy. But here, we actually get to see her backstory. We're going to learn why she was so loyal to Thrawn, and why a Night Sister would be so loyal to the Empire.
A Night Sister? Is that a dirty movie?
No, so Morgan is one of the Night Sisters of Dathomir. These are the dark side using Force witches that we saw in Ahsoka. But before that, they appeared all throughout the Clone Wars. They brought back Darth Maul from the brink of insanity, and they propped him up to oppose Palpatine. And even though they use the dark side, they're not pure evil. Like we've seen Night Sisters like Merrin from Fallen Order and Asajj Ventress eventually come to serve the light, while also using the dark side of the Force. At the end of the Clone Wars, Darth Sidious didn't want them as potential rivals, so he ordered Dooku and General Grievous to wipe out the Night Sisters, so there are actually very few of them left alive. Now, we do see parts of this battle in the trailer that I'll talk about as we go along, but previously we only really ever saw this event in the Darth Maul comic book, which was originally going to be an arc in the Clone Wars.
Oh, just a second, person. Hello? Oh, sure. See you soon.
Who was that?
Oh, that was the store owners. They're gonna come by today.
Oh my gosh, the store owners are coming here? The store has owners? Okay, breathe. Well, okay, gotta smell good. Okay, good. Yes.
Hey, what was that?
Oh, well, I want to impress the store owner, so I put on some cologne. This is Sweet Taboo by Chris Collins. It's a high-end fragrance, but I was able to get it for just over $7 through Scentbird, the sponsor of this video. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service, and if you're new to wearing cologne, this is a great way to start and learn what you're doing. Scentbird is perfect for a guy like me because I have no idea what makes for good cologne, and I don't want to drop a lot of money on a pricey bottle. Now, to educate me about the cologne, they sent along a descriptive card that explains the ingredients. This month, my personal favorite was Indigo Smoke by Arquiste. It's a smoky black tea fragrance with notes of tea, mandarin orange, apricot, incense, and pine tar.
Ah, yes. It also captures the fragrance of the Ruri Mountains and their dramatic river narrows.
God, you really do have an incredible sense of smell. Now, these samples are actually 8 times bigger than a normal sample size you would get at a store. You can choose a designer fragrance every month for just $17. You get a 30-day supply, and you get to pick what you receive, so there's never going to be a surprise. This is a great way to learn about cologne, to find out what you like without spending hundreds of dollars on a real expensive bottle. A dash of cologne has become an important part of my morning routine. A shower, get spruced up, and then the finishing touch is just a little spray. Plus, you can skip any month with no penalties. So if you want to give Scentbird a try, use this QR code and use our code 55SCREEN and click the link in the description to get 55% off. That's just over $7 for your first month, available in the USA and Canada. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring us, and check out the sample links below. So Doug, do you think this cologne's going to impress the owners?
They were already here. They're gone.
What? Where was I?
You were doing the ad, and they said you smelled nice. They dropped off Superman 4 and they left.
Oh, darn it. This Imperial era, especially the life of Thrawn, is currently being explored in the novels and comics. In particular, the new Timothy Zahn Thrawn trilogy does a great job of showing the inner workings of the Empire. But here I think we're finally getting to see connective tissue between the Clone Wars, the original trilogy, and the Mandoverse on Disney+. Here we see a shot of droids attacking a forest, and I think this is the destruction of the Night Sisters on Dathomir that I just talked about earlier. This is Morgan remembering this night, and she's swearing loyalty to the Empire so she can wipe out any remaining separatists in the galaxy. Now, this tracks because the general public did not know that Palpatine was secretly a Sith Lord who was leader of the Separatists, and many early rebels were former Separatists who simply wanted to oppose the Empire, or in their eyes, the former Republic. And not all of these shots are from the destruction of Dathomir. This shot of a soldier, for instance, this is one of Morgan's soldiers that we saw in The Mandalorian and in Ahsoka. I have a theory about what's going on here that I'll talk about a little later in the video. So I want to note here that this scene of her talking to Thrawn is fairly early in Imperial history because the closed captions tell us that this is Admiral Thrawn and not Grand Admiral Thrawn. So this would take place between the first and second Thrawn novels. And then we see the fourth sister. She is one of the Sith Inquisitors.
Yes, the Sith Inquisitors.
Okay, so during the reign of the Empire, Palpatine and Vader used dark side-wielding warriors called the Sith Inquisitors to hunt down the remaining Jedi Knights. Now these were not full-fledged Sith. There can only ever be two Sith. These were usually former Jedi who had fallen to the dark side. We see them in Rebels, Fallen Order, Obi-Wan, and a lot of comic books. In fact, we first met the fourth sister in the show Obi-Wan, and I think we're going to see the origin of the seventh sister in this show, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. Now this is an Inquisitor shuttle like we saw in Rebels and in the show Obi-Wan. And then we see Barriss Offee in prison, and man, have I been waiting for this story. Barriss Offee was a Padawan who was about Ahsoka's age. Now Ahsoka always played things fast and loose like her master Anakin, while Barriss Offee was always doing everything by the book. Nevertheless, the two of them became good friends, but the war changed Barriss Offee and she lost faith in the Jedi Order. Eventually, she bombed the Jedi Temple and framed Ahsoka for the crime, and she did this to show that the Jedi were falling to the dark side.
And my attack on the temple was an attack on what the Jedi have become, an army fighting for the dark side.
And then we never found out what happened to her. I am thrilled to finally get to see her story play out. Now she is being held in a prison cell, and the uniform she's wearing is just like the one that her former master Luminara Unduli wore in Rebels. Well, it was actually an illusion of Luminara Unduli, but you get the idea. The clone troopers guarding her are wearing red, which makes them part of Palpatine's elite shock unit. Now, as we've seen in the Bad Batch, clones were very slowly retired from Imperial service. A few of the clones, like Clone Commandos and the Clone X Assassins, were still kept in service. So this likely means that these particular clones, Palpatine's private unit, stayed loyal to the Empire. This one says,
"Just be glad you're not a Jedi anymore."
Because, of course, all the Jedi were murdered. Then we see shots of young Morgan Elsbeth, I think starting her training. The closed captions say this is the Mountain Clan matron talking to her, training her to use these war scythes. We see shots of her intercut fighting droids, which I believe is her fighting against Grievous's forces during the destruction of Dathomir. But then this transforms into a shot of her as an adult carrying her Beskar spear and walking away from this burning shuttle. So during this time, when she's older, she was appointed as the Imperial Magistrate of a planet called Corvus. This is where we first met her in The Mandalorian Season 2. Later in the trailer, we can see some people coming to her to ask for aid.
You said the Empire would help to change things.
And I believe this is their shuttle that she is burning. This is also probably the battle with the Flame Trooper that I mentioned earlier. Now the text on screen tells us that we're seeing two stories that lead to one path to the dark side. For Morgan, she was already a dark side wielding witch. And for Barriss Offee, we're going to see a formerly good, well-intentioned young Padawan fall fully to the dark. We see the Grand Inquisitor beginning to train her. Now, he was a former Jedi Temple guard who hunted down Obi-Wan and the Jedi in the show Rebels. Now, we've seen Sith Inquisitors recruit former Padawans before, most notably what happened to the second sister in Jedi Fallen Order. There is a table of lightsabers of dead Jedi here, and Barriss naturally gravitates toward this green one, which matches the one used by her former master Luminara Unduli, who we first saw with Barriss right here in Attack of the Clones. I love this moment of the blood drip smacking against the floor, blood being red and symbolizing the path of the Sith. In other words, this evil, this dark side was inside Barriss Offee all along. Even the part where he uses the Force to unlock her handcuffs seems inspired by Palpatine's move on Luke in Return of the Jedi.
You no longer need those.
Then we see the Republic attack shuttles flying toward a base on Coruscant, followed by Morgan's garden on Corvus, where she dueled Ahsoka in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. So maybe this is showing how she becomes magistrate of this planet. She kills this person and their entire party to take control of this world. Now notice these planetary defense troopers in this shot. This is the same style of uniform that would later be adapted by rebel military troopers and by the New Republic. And then we get this badass shot of Grievous looming over Morgan Elsbeth on the night that Dathomir fell. I love that we are finally getting to see these moments as a moving image after the Clone Wars cancellation relegated them to comics. Similarly, Asajj Ventress appeared to have died in the novel Dark Disciple, which was supposed to have been a long Clone Wars arc, and now she's back in the Bad Batch. Notice how, when she fights Grievous, her war sickles are electrified. This would be the only way they could actually counter lightsabers without being sliced in half. And then we see the fourth sister dropping down and appearing to fight droids. Now, I think this is probably just intercutting with other footage, but this is an interesting idea. As we saw in the Bad Batch, not all Separatist droids were deactivated at the end of the Clone Wars. In Season 2, we saw local governments using reprogrammed droids for protection, and there are still droid forces active during Star Wars Rebels. And, the Sith Inquisitors are primarily focused on hunting down Jedi. So what if we see a Jedi reprogram Separatist droids for protection? We could even see a Jedi who has abandoned the Order, but who has made themselves a kind of commander of their own little fiefdom, similar to the insane Jedi clone Joruus C'baoth in the Heir to the Empire Thrawn novel. Or maybe the Sith Inquisitors are just helping to mop up after the Clone Wars. Now notice she's also using the weird spinny lightsaber blade that we saw the Inquisitors use in Rebels, which they would also sometimes use as helicopter blades. If I had a guess, I would say this is actually a shot of the fourth sister at Barriss Offee's initiation that we saw clips of at the end of this trailer. Now the text during the end of the trailer slowly reads fear, hate, suffering, which, as Yoda laid out for us in The Phantom Menace, is the path to the dark side.
Fear is the path to the dark side.
I think what we're going to see in this show is that Morgan Elsbeth actually started off with the best of intentions. As a student, she was probably kind and well-meaning, but the eradication of her people hardened her, and revenge became the only thing in her life that mattered. Maybe Thrawn helped her achieve that revenge in exchange for information about other Night Sisters. This would explain why their alliance is so ironclad in the show Ahsoka. Trailer ends with Barriss Offee being forced to fight another former Jedi. I think a Jedi Padawan, judging by his size. They are placed in a kind of octagon, surrounded by a red force field. Appropriate since this is the color of the Sith. But also this red force field is similar to the blast shields that we saw in the final duel in The Phantom Menace. Now we know these shields deflected lightsabers, so I'm guessing they would also burn you alive if you touch them. So the message here for Barriss is clear. You stay in this circle where you will either die a Jedi or live as a Sith. And then at the end we see a lineup of Sith Inquisitors. On the far end is the first brother, the very cool looking Inquisitor we saw Ahsoka kill in the Tales of the Jedi finale. Next is Merrick, the mysterious fart cloud in The Mandalorian. Now, the show Ahsoka never explained who this guy was, but we do know that the green mist that emanated from him meant that he was resurrected by Night Sister magic. So hopefully we get some answers in this show about who this guy was, what his connection to Morgan was, and why she bothered to resurrect him to begin with. And we also see the fourth sister and, of course, Barriss Offee. So I have been saying for years that Barriss should have been the seventh sister from Star Wars Rebels. They are the same species after all. But when Ahsoka fought the seventh sister, there was no recognition between the two of them. Now, Dave Filoni loves a retcon. He basically threw out the canon audio novel Ahsoka, and then he brought Asajj Ventress back from the dead, and apparently Ahsoka was alive during the original trilogy and did nothing to help the rebels. So maybe we'll see this series end with Ahsoka encountering the seventh sister, and them finally having some resolution to their complicated relationship from the Clone Wars. And of course, the trailer ends with the Inquisitors kneeling to Lord Vader as the Tales of the Jedi title burns away to become Tales of the Empire. Now, this is similar to the first episode of The Bad Batch, when the Clone Wars title burned away to reveal that the show is going to deal with the aftermath of that war. Guys, I am really pumped for this show. I loved Tales of the Jedi. Just seeing those little vignettes about Dooku's fall to the dark side really helped flesh out this world. I think there was a lot of world building that needed to be done before Attack of the Clones, because Dooku was just kind of introduced out of nowhere. Similarly, Morgan Elsbeth, Thrawn, we were just thrown all this stuff in the show Ahsoka. It was really hard to get a handle on who Morgan was, why she had this connection to Thrawn, why are these Night Sisters in this other galaxy, how did Thrawn contact her? Finally, we're going to see all of those questions answered, at least partially, in this show. Not to mention, there's going to be some connection between Barriss Offee and Morgan Elsbeth. Yes, Barriss Offee probably becomes the seventh sister, but then what? I mean, what was her journey like after that point? In the Clone Wars, she is a deeply nuanced, complicated character who always felt like she was acting in the best interests of her people. And in the Fallen Order games, we've seen small snippets of like different Jedi Padawans falling to the dark side to become Sith Inquisitors. But Barriss Offee is a point of view character that we've already gotten to know in the Clone Wars. So I think seeing her fall to the dark side is only going to enhance the stories of other characters like Darth Vader and Kylo Ren. And once again, thanks to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. You can find my fragrance links below. Well guys, that's just my thoughts on the trailer, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.